What's going on, guys? Jeremy here from Focus Flow, and today I got something a little special for you. So recently I got a DM over on Instagram from a guy named Jason who lives in Australia. He said he saw my side flip tutorial, and while he can already do a side flip, he was looking to improve upon it and asked for my help. So I asked if I could help him in the form of a YouTube video, that way anybody can benefit from it, and he said go for it. So today we're going to be looking at some clips of his side flips, comparing them to my own, and seeing if we can help him out. So he says there are three major problems. The first problem he says he's having is that he keeps throwing his chest downwards. Now, if you've watched my channel enough, or just flipping tutorials in general, then you know that generally throwing your chest down is going to sacrifice some height on your flips. He says the second problem he's having is that he ends up landing backwards. Now, as we've covered before, this is a very common problem with side flips, so we can see if we can help him with that as well. And the final problem he says he's having is that his hips keep turning. So now let's take a look at some of Jason's side flips, see if we agree on some of the problems, and more importantly, see if we can help him out. First, let's go over some of the things I think you did right, because I don't want you going over and changing everything about your side flip, because to be honest, they're pretty good already. The first thing I really like to see is the arm movement you're using. Notice how his leading arm starts by punching the air and then coming down, and his trailing arm swings up in like a Russian technique. That is absolutely superb, especially when you're first learning the side flip. It can be really tempting to throw your arms upward like this or do all sorts of wacky things that don't really help the side flip that much. And you can even tell on my very old side flips that my arm movement was horrible, so good job on that. That's really good. Also, I see what he's saying about turning a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad as I originally thought when he sent me the DM. I mean, as you can see, his feet are landing pretty sideways, which is great, but I do notice the twisting happen mainly in his chest. You can see how when he lands the flip, he tends to look the way he came from. So if I was side flipping like this, he'd land and be kind of facing over there. Not to worry though, I definitely think we can fix that pretty easily. And I definitely see what Jason is talking about when he refers to throwing his chest down. And I honestly think that if we work on that, we can kill two birds with one stone, and I'll get to that in a second. So now that we took a look at some of your side flips, Jason, I'm gonna give you some tips on some of the issues that you mentioned having, but then I'm gonna go one step further on an issue that I think you are having and I think will greatly improve your side flip if you address. So first, let's address the chest problem you're having, which is throwing it too far downward. Now, this is where I think we can kill two birds with one stone, because throwing your chest downward is not only going to sacrifice some of the height you get from your flip, but the way you're throwing it, I think, is the culprit for why you're turning a little bit at the end of your side flip. So what I notice about your side flip is that you're not just throwing your chest downward relative to the direction or the axis that you're flipping on with the side flip, but you're actually also throwing it to the side. And I'll explain what I mean by that. When we do basic flips that don't involve twists, like front flips, back flips, and side flips, we're only rotating on one axis, and we want to keep our bodies bending and moving in a way that only generates momentum on that one axis. So in whichever direction we're facing for our flip, let's say we're doing a side flip like this, or we're doing a front flip like this, or a back flip like this, we're only trying to move or flip in that axis, which will be like this. All right? We're not trying to move on your twisting axis like this, or anything like this either. You'll notice that if I'm doing a backflip, I'm never gonna be torquing my waist to the side or somehow moving my pelvis like this. I'm never gonna be doing that. Every body part I move is on this axis, because that's the only axis that I need to generate momentum on for the flip. So my arms go up, then they go back, my body bends down like this to get momentum for the height and the flip. Everything is on this axis. But if we transfer that same knowledge over to the side flip, then everything still stands. If I'm running this direction and I want to side flip, then I want to make sure that every body part I'm using is only going to be flipping me on this axis right here. I don't want to be moving like this, and I definitely don't want to be moving like this. Everything should be coming this way. Now the difference is with the side flips tuck, you're still tucking like a front flip or back flip, which means your knees are gonna come up like this, and you're either gonna grab your shins or your quads. And because that movement itself is on the opposite axis of the side flip, that's where people oftentimes have issues when it comes to twisting their side flip. And this is where I think you're having your issue as well. So coming back to your chest problems, you know, your heartburn, you throwing your chest downward, like you said, is also throwing it sideways relative to the axis you're flipping on. And this is what I mean by we can kill two birds with one stone. Because if we can keep your chest going upward, then not only will that provide extra height, since you're going to be lifting your center of gravity, making your jump more efficient, but I guarantee you'll also find it easier to stay on this axis without turning like this, as opposed to throwing your chest downward, which kind of shifts the axis of the side flip. I really hope that makes sense. So that's probably the reason why you're twisting in your side flip, and hopefully I explained it well. But how do we actually cognizantly fix that issue? Because clearly you already knew you were doing it, but you're still having trouble not doing it. The way I'd go about it is addressing your side flip jumping technique. Now, in order to side flip while keeping your chest up high so that you're getting a higher side flip and also preventing that twisting issue you're having, we need to be able to keep our chest relatively on the same axis that we're flipping on and not throwing it on a different axis. And the way we do that is by changing that jumping technique. So what you'll notice in the side flip clips that I have here is that in no point during the jump is my chest past my knees. It's always either directly above them or a little bit behind them. Now, if we compare that to your side flip, we can see how you're throwing your chest downward, but that's also pushing them past your knees. So I think what's gonna really help you out here is practicing the set of your side flip. Just the jump, just the takeoff, not trying to tuck into the side flip. Just practice jumping while purposely just keeping your chest straight up like this the entire time. You wanna bend your knees, you wanna bend your ankles, but you wanna keep your chest facing up the entire time. So when you're running up to do your side flip, try to focus on spotting something in front of you and keeping your head and chest and everything locked into that position while only bending your knees and your ankles. Try to keep this area, try to keep that from going forward and back. Just let your legs do all the bending. And then when it comes down to actually throwing yourself into the side flip, instead of throwing your chest like this, think about throwing your chest like this on this axis, which is the axis you're flipping on. The reason that this will probably really help, especially with the twisting issue you're having, is that by throwing your chest downward like this, we already know that our knees tend to go where our chest goes when we tuck. So if our chest is going over here, but we're flipping like this, then that's gonna bring our knees all the way over here, and that's going to initiate some of that twist. So I really hope that advice helps you with both your twisting issue and your setting issue. Because honestly, I think that's the reason why you're twisting in your side flip more so than your hips turning. If anything, your hips are turning because your chest is being thrown sideways. Now that we got those issues out of the way, I wanna give you a couple of tips that I think will greatly improve your side flip if you're able to apply them. And they both have to do with your setup and takeoff. So firstly, I noticed that you tend to take off with your legs spread quite a bit. Now, you don't want to have your legs completely together, but you want to find a good balance between a position that's going to generate the optimal amount of power while still keeping you rigid and balanced. What you'll notice is that even if you just jump normally, if your legs are too far spread apart, then they're not going to be able to give you as much power as they would if they were placed about shoulder width apart. And you can see how if your legs are too far spread apart, then the power generated from them tends to kind of go against each other into a point that's going to push you up, as opposed to being directly below you, pushing you up, which means they're going to be less efficient. So bringing your legs together just a little bit, I recommend about shoulder width apart, maybe just a little bit more or a little bit less. That should give you the best balance between power and stability, and you'll get more height off your flip right off the bat. And now finally, the most important tip, the tip that I think will help you more than anything else I've said in this video and will just drastically improve the height and rotation speed of your side flip, and that has to do with blocking. Now, I know I talk a lot about blocking in almost every flipping tutorial I do, but that's just because it is so incredibly important and useful for your flips. Not only that, but it is probably the most common technique that people mess up on when they're trying to apply it in their flips. So first, I see that you're using the gather step technique, and that's really good, but what I still see is that you're taking off from a leaning forward position. You can see if I drew a straight line on that axis on your body, that it would still be tilted into the direction of your flip. So that indicates that we're not properly blocking. So I'm gonna try to explain the technique of blocking again and really try to demonstrate how it works, because it's important not only to understand exactly what to do in order to block efficiently for your side flip, but also to understand exactly how blocking works, because this is utilized in so many different flips and other flip variations that aren't even on flat ground, but it's utilized in different ways. So if you understand the concept and how it works, then you'll be able to tweak your blocking technique based on different flips that you're doing to utilize it perfectly. In order to do it properly, you first need to have some initial forward momentum. As we can see, you're doing this from a running start, so that is your forward momentum. But in order to convert that forward momentum into upward momentum, you have to plant your feet in front of you on your block. I can see you have a good understanding of the gather step technique, but what you're not doing is placing your feet in front of you enough. Now, the reason we place our feet in front of us when blocking is because we're taking into account the time it takes to bend down and then extend our legs to actually jump. When we jump, it's not like a video game where you just press A and then all of a sudden you're in the air. We first have to charge up that jump, and we do that by bending our knees, our ankles, our pelvis, whatever it is. So if you're running forward and then you plant your legs directly below you, what'll happen is that by the time your legs bend down and then re-extend and then you actually get back into the air, your chest has been moving forward that entire time because your feet might have been planted, but that forward momentum you gain by running is still pushing your chest forward the entire time you're on the ground. So when you're blocking, you have to place your feet in front of you. This way, your chest is set backwards so that that forward momentum is pushing your chest in alignment with your legs as you're bending them down and getting ready for the jump. And if you do the block perfectly, then by the time you're actually taking off for your jump, your chest is going to be perfectly centered over your knees and your toes, and that's what's going to propel you upward. Just to give you an idea, if you're in a stationary position, meaning you're not getting a running start, then you shouldn't be able to balance in the blocking position that you use for your running side flip. Because when you're blocking, you're setting your chest back and relying on the forward momentum you have to keep you upright and to continue to push you into an upright position. Now, mastering blocking is going to take time no matter who you are, because there are several factors you have to take into consideration in order to get that timing down perfectly. For instance, how much you personally bend your knees before jumping, that's going to vary the amount of time you spend on the ground and thus vary how far you should place your feet in front of you initially when blocking. Another factor would be how fast you're actually running upon setting up for your side flip. The slower you're running, the more time it's going to take for your chest to be moving forward into that upright position for your block, and therefore you want to mess around with that variable as well. Now, those are just two examples, but there are a lot of others in play as well. So just know that the amount that you place your feet in front of you is going to vary depending on the situation and just how you use your side flip technique as well. Just play around with the timing until you find something that works for you. But once you do get that timing down, you will know. Trust me. If you do it properly, you'll be taking off in a relatively upright position, and that'll give you a huge benefit to the height of your flip, the rotation speed of your flip, and you'll also notice that you're not traveling as far forward because you're actually doing a good job at converting that momentum into upward momentum. So that is my biggest tip to you. All of these tips I think are important and will help you improve your side flip, but I think especially blocking, you'll probably notice the biggest difference in how high and powerful your side flips feel. So Jason, try applying these tips, give yourself time to actually learn them and have your body get comfortable doing them, and please keep me updated with how it goes. I'd love to see your improved side flip. All right, that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys have any tricks that you're looking to improve, consider DMing me on Instagram and I'll see if I can make a video helping you. I really hope you like this video. I'm Jeremy with Focus Flow, and I hope to see you in the next one.